Today, I'd like to talk about cancel culture. So I suppose once upon a time, somewhat ironically I guess, there was a form of cancel culture that was largely concerned parents with very strict religious beliefs that didn't like certain aspects of culture and would write letters and phone in, and this is decades ago. It wasn't identified as such, it wasn't called cancel culture, but it's a form of that. It's a kind of human activity that's gotten completely out of hand at this stage of history. It's this human activity of refusing to engage in dialogue because you're so upset about something or you disagree so deeply that you feel entitled to indirectly attack a person or a group, to not even attempt negotiation. Some of it is fear and absolute cowardice. You see, when you don't engage in dialogue with someone that's upset you or has said something that you disagree with, and you just act behind the scenes to try to mess with them, one of the things that you're doing is you're protecting yourself from being wrong. It's when a person or a group of people form usually a negative opinion and don't actually investigate. Again, maybe there is some sort of investigation, like digging through years and years of Twitter posts as though that proves anything about anybody. But that sort of thing. There might be investigation indirectly, but usually there's no actual attempt to speak directly to the person or group that's upset you, that's done something you disagree with. Now recently, woke culture, the extreme left end of the political spectrum and people that identify with those values, have gathered themselves under a pretty dishonest banner, will gleefully engage in cancel culture. Again, lots of accusation, lots of indirect attacks, but no attempt for any kind of even informal due process, where when someone accuses you of something, you get to face that person who's accused you. You get to have an actual dialogue, even if these kinds of dishonest actions are motivated by a sense of compassion for others. It's not true compassion. True compassion always attempts to try to get all sides of the story. It's bled into, well, many aspects of our culture. From journalism, to friends, to family, to media, the kind of media that we consume, our shows and our movies. And it's really a sad development. It's a very unfortunate development. It's scummy. It's shallow. Impurities that rise to the surface and coalesce to poison people and groups and aspects of our culture. Part of the truth of humanity is that there will always be different understandings of life, different approaches to truth, different experiences that are sometimes unreconcilable. But there's usually an opportunity for compromise only if bravery and intellectual fortitude is engaged and conversation happens. People can agree to disagree. And some people just say and do really nasty, heinous things. Some people hold pretty terrible views. But these days, the way that cancel culture is pursued, that's not the case most of the time. It's just people that, again, have a difference of opinion, have seen something, some behavior, or read something or heard something, and have engaged in behind the scene attacks, in slander, often lies. There's a great deal of inherent dishonesty in cancel culture and the mechanisms that cancel culture employs. In fact, there are some people and groups that will gleefully engage in dishonest manipulations of the truth or what happened just because they think that they're fighting for a good cause, that they're protecting a vulnerable group. But again, if no dialogue is requested, then true investigation has not happened. If there has not been a chance for all parties involved in any situation where someone feels justified to attack someone else, if no dialogue has been requested or seeked out, it's just an overreaction on a misperception. Now, a lot of journalism these days, modern journalism, really amounts to, especially in the mainstream, amounts to very little besides a kind of soft cancel culture. Just taking whatever salacious concept or headline that might be popular, employing the weaving of a little bit of mainstream politics, and getting usually maybe one side of the story or no side of the story, just some second or third hand information, and running with it, and writing articles, and asserting all sorts of things that are either partially true or just plainly untrue. Now, we've seen the woke culture, the extreme left side of the spectrum, and people that identify with that for a number of years, since, I don't actually know for sure, but maybe 2017, 2016, 17, political correctness started to sweep mainstream culture. In some ways, it was a good thing. It's good for people to be more conscientious and respectful. It's good for people to examine their history and figure out what happened to them so that they themselves can try to do the work to come to terms with it, to try to find peace within their heart and their soul. But these days, it's just run rampant, like a forest fire. It's burning everything. And for a few years, people have been scared. They've been scared to speak out, scared to defend their own friends and family. It's reached into the intellectual community. It's reached on to the right side of the political spectrum and the, people that maybe consider themselves centrist. It's become this rampant culture war. Some of the culture war has to do with, again, an overbearing expectation of political correctness that, again, usually doesn't engage in dialogue but just blames, points the finger, and tries to either silence or cancel. But there's some nasty subcultures that have sprung up in reaction to that forceful and one-sided kind of thinking, which is kind of understandable. People don't want to be treated that way. People want to have a chance to defend themselves, have a chance to speak with those that try to harm them or their life. But as I said, the culture war rages across the spectrum of political understanding in human beings. I see an aspect of the culture war, or aspects maybe, in, like I said, intellectual communities. So you'll have people that, I don't know if every one of these people would identify as a materialist or an atheist, for example, but you'll have people that have those kind of views and engage in that kind of belief system. And it is a belief system. We still have a lot to learn and a lot to investigate and prove in this world about the physical world around us, as well as our internal world, our consciousness, our bodies, our health. But I see this in the intellectual community and the health and fighting community. Mixed martial arts, modern martial arts, really. Where there's this, again, very nasty, very close-minded approach to martial arts. If you talk about energy or chi for a moment, you better watch out. Someone might come and try to challenge you to a fight to get you to prove whether what you're doing works or not. You might be doing some peaceful, slow, calming, meditative Tai Chi or Qigong. I do Qigong in the park on a regular basis. But you might have some yahoo, some tough guy come up and try to challenge you to a fight. It happened to me once, actually. I think it was in Amsterdam. I was doing some Qigong, and this guy who didn't speak English got his friend to try to challenge me to a sparring match. I was with my girlfriend. I took a little break because it was a beautiful park and I was enjoying myself to do some Qigong in a beautiful setting, as I often do. These kind of practices are enhanced by a natural environment, by grass and trees and water. And this person challenged me to a sparring match, and I could tell that this person and his chucklehead friend weren't trying to have a respectful contest. They wanted to prove something, and I've seen it time and time again. I've seen it spoken about. I've seen videos of people actually doing this. There's a famous guy in China who's been going around trying to beat up kung fu practitioners and other traditional martial arts practitioners. People can fucking practice whatever they want. It's about as ridiculous as a bunch of meathead weightlifters coming and heckling or harassing someone who's sitting in the park to meditate 20 years ago or do yoga. Now we have these two practices, yoga and meditation, in their various forms, accepted at a personal level because people have actually tried it, which is really what these kinds of practices are all about. It's about your personal experience, but there's all sorts of research that also shows that it's helpful. Qigong is in that same sort of boat. You don't really have to understand traditional Chinese medicine to practice Qigong. You don't have to believe in Qi even. But you do have to open your mind to the possibility of that concept, because there's all sorts of experiences and sensations that are a rich and important part of the practice of Qigong that you'll be missing out on if you close your mind up in a little box where everything that's proven exists and all the rest of the world that still exists, that's still there for you to try and explore if you'd like, is a delusion. That's delusional. That's actually a delusional thought that only things that are proven are true. We just have to look through history. The example of Qigong, the example of meditation, the example of yoga, all of these things, you can try them. You can see how useful they are. Do them regularly. Do them with an open mind and an open heart, and you might learn something. And I think most of you would find a great benefit. In fact, yoga's become a regular accepted part of the fighting community. But the problem is, there's this culture war. There's this idea that there's only the material part of the world, but we still haven't figured it all out. There's a lot more for us to learn. And a huge part of that unexplored territory is our experience, is our consciousness, and how that connects and influences the physical material world. I get the sense that we're on the cusp of a kind of breaking of the dam, breaking of the concrete barrier, where people are going to start to explore this kind of stuff more for themselves. reason and rationality is very, very important. Science is incredibly useful. What a powerful tool that's got us to where we are today. But it's also very dangerous if we ignore intuition, if we demonize the experience and the expression of emotion. We need both. Use your reason and your intuition. Have the courage to feel your emotions and express them. Try to do that in a respectful way. But if someone doesn't do that in a way that you find respectful, try to have an understanding that they're doing that because they're upset, and return to goodwill and the desire for dialogue. Most situations can find resolution at some degree through compromise and negotiation. Don't let darkness take you over. Don't let this scummy behavior poison your heart or your mind or your soul. Thank you for watching, and try to be respectful when you can.